Israel's plans of a ground invasion aims to wipe out Hamas from the Gaza Strip. They've ordered the 1.1 million people to evacuate in a day, which may seem possible. In the first part of this telecast, we're going to be explaining to you Israel's ground invasion aims and the full situation of evacuation that, of course, has now commenced in certain parts of the region. Let me quickly explain you those details first before we also, of course, open it up to our guests. So this is the aims of why the ground invasion is being planned by the Israelis. So there is a house-to-house urban fighting that, of course, is being planned. House-to-house urban fighting is, of course, being planned by the Israelis, of course, in that Gaza area. They're planning to wipe out all 15,000 Hamas fighters. They are determined now to strike at each target. They're also planning to rescue 150 hostages which continue to remain in Gaza, those who were kidnapped, of course, on the first day of the attack. They're also planning the use of airstrikes to continue, which are underway to, of course, eliminate the Gaza Hamas leadership. And, of course, they're also now planning that offensive on ground as well. Now, as far as the evacuation is concerned, remember it has already commenced today. Palestinians were given a window to evacuate one part of Gaza and move to the other. This is, you can see over here, a quick map which will show you the key areas, the key locations from Cyprus to, of course, Egypt, Jordan, Gaza, etc. And now if we talk about Gaza Strip in particular, so this is the Gaza Strip, which is, of course, the main part of the fighting. And I'll just request our producers to just pause on this a second so I can explain it, then we'll move on. So this is the Gaza evacuation that is happening. So remember, North Gaza has 4,44,000 people. 7,50,000 people are in Gaza city. If we talk about Deir el-Balah, well, there are 3,20,000 Palestinians there, 4,30,000 in Khan Yunis, and 2,75,000 in Rafah. That is North Gaza. This is South Gaza. Now, there are three crossings basically to get from Beit Hanun to Rafah. So there are three crossings, and remember, two roads, two paths which were given today. There was a multiple hour window where the Israelis said that there would be no harm if anyone wanted to evacuate and move from one part to the other. So there's a Beit Hanun crossing, there's a Rafah crossing, and there's, of course, the Rem Abu Salem crossings. This right now is the evacuation zone. You can see there the prohibited area is, of course, on this side of the strip. The evacuation zone is in this side of Gaza city. That is, of course, North Gaza, where the ground offensive is likely to begin from in the first place. Israel's order: evacuate south of the Gaza River, most densely populated. North Gaza, remember, of course, we were showing you those statistics earlier, and this is, of course, that area where the evacuations are going to be concentrating on. So that, of course, is again West Bank, Israel, Gaza Strip, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, as you can see there. Let me quickly open this up to our guests to just talk about, of course, the situation that is now likely to develop after a ground offensive begins, now that the evacuation window is complete. There may be another window given tomorrow, there may not be. That is something we still don't have any clarity from the IDF over. Joining us at this point are some special guests. We will just open it out to them in a second. We have with us live Major General G.G. Dwivedi, Global Strategic Defense Expert. Major General Dwivedi, let me bring you in here on this ground offensive. Why is this ground offensive now becoming crucial, important for the Israelis? Why are they concentrating on commencing this as soon as possible?
Well, Uday, today is the day 8 of the Israel-Hamas war, and you have very rightly explained, and also with the map given a good perspective. The point is that this second phase is going to be very crucial, because this is the war, a battle for Gaza, and that implies ground offensive by the Israeli Defense Forces, and that's a counter strike. Now, in the phase 2, the aim of Israelis have been very clearly defined. That is to annihilate the Hamas completely and change the governance. So that implies that it has to be a very deliberate, calibrated ground offensive. Now, there are certain issues that needs attention. Firstly, what is the strategy of Hamas? Hamas is well dug in Gaza. It's like a fortress. They are fortified and they are prepared to fight to finish, and they'll be rather fighting in the guerrilla warfare mode. Now, when we talk of the offensive, what are the criticalities? First and foremost is going to be urban warfare. That means you are going to fight in the built up areas. And having my own experience both in Dhaka in 1971 and later on, this is a most difficult fighting for any army. And more so when you're fighting an unconventional people, unconventional terrorist or unconventional organization. So therefore, 3 points or 4 points will be very critical. First and foremost, as you rightly said, it has to be house to house fight, street to street, and possibly one segment of the city to other segment. Secondly, most critical part here is that Hamas has built a network of underground tunnels or metros, what they call, and this is almost 500-kilometer kind of a network. So they have got tremendous capability to fight from these fortifications. And thirdly, they will be using the human shields, means the civilians, as a protective shield, and they will also be merging with the civilians. So therefore, the numbers, whether they are 25,000, 30,000, is very flexible, because when they drop a gun, you become a civilian. When you pick up a gun, you become a terrorist. And the last point is the civilian casualties. While Israelis have, asked for the evacuation, but number of them will stay back either voluntarily or not being allowed to be evacuated by the Hamas. And therefore, it's going to be a bloody fight, it's going to be a long term, and it is going to be decisive, because outcome of this phase will determine the end state of Israel-Hamas war. Uday.
Yes, let me also take that across to Major General Sudhakar ji, who is also joining us live, a geopolitical strategic expert. Major General Sudhakar ji, this window, of course, being offered today to Palestinians who want to evacuate. This window, of course, being given. Many believe this is a precursor to an on-ground invasion. Israel is determined to neutralize every single Hamas fighter there is, which is why after airstrikes, after rockets being launched into the area, an on-ground offensive is their next aim.
Uday, good evening. Thank you. Thank you. And I must compliment General Dwivedi for having given a good primer. Let me address your question by giving a perspective. What is happening around the world today? A global perspective. I would say the focus, to me, as per my analysis, maybe temporarily, is shifting from the Central Europe to the Middle East. When I talk about the Central Europe, it has given us an experience of multipolarity or a polycentricness. While two forces, two proxies were fighting against each other, hidden behind the two proxies were a kind of multipolar dimension, all the poles which are supporting them. Now it has shifted to Middle East. This Middle East is actually in a way, the centrality around which US forces had been dispersed and deployed till they evacuated in a hasty manner from Afghanistan in August 2021. Why am I highlighting this aspect? The dimensions are fraught with many fault lines. It is not only Israel and Palestine, it is the whole lot of Arabic nations and against Israel. So primarily, if I have to respond to your question, I would say there is a collage of linkages. The linkages of Mexican standoff, there is an old saying of Mexican standoff in Mexican standoff. It means that each of the stakeholder is pointing the other with two guns in his hand. What it means is, let's say, for example, between Israel and Iran. Iran today is actually leveraging its contact and support to the Hamas, as also Hezbollah against Israel. And Israel is actually containing and confronting Iran by supporting the Azerbaijan, as also I would say the Kurdish militants in the Iraq, north of Iraq. Similarly, when you talk about Saudi Arabia and Iran, Iran is actually collaborating or supporting the Houthis and the Iraqi militias against Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia has got Pakistan, the present governance, and the Taliban in Afghanistan. So this is how it is actually collaged and stacked up against each other. So to say that Hamas as a entity today is very difficult. I think I must compliment General Dwivedi by having highlighted the issue that a conventional force is fighting or getting ready to combat and also saturate the entire area, pulverize the entire area against a non-conventional force. Today, the Hamas are not identifiable. They cannot be pinpointed unless Israel has already acquired by different means and methodology of intelligence acquisition. It is very difficult to actually pinpoint in an area of 41 kilometers long by 6 to 10 kilometers wide. Although you have shown the perspective, given us the perspective in a very systematic manner, but 30,000, you have brought down the figure to 15,000. My research indicates the total of 30,000 Hamas. 7 to 8,000, they continue to stay in West Bank. Remaining 22 to 23,000 are there in Gaza Strip, and out of which some 1,500 have been taken care of. The remaining 20,000 odd are still there. Now, to have pinpointed information about the location, about the identity is a tall order in today's time. Tank versus one non-identifiable objective is a big challenge. So therefore, it brings me to the last point. Fighting in built-up area, like the preceding speaker, the co-panelist has highlighted, is a very time-consuming, very laborious process. It requires a troop-intensive operation from house to house, room to room, lane to lane, and how much of coordination would be required is anybody's guess between Air Force, artillery, armor, mechanized forces, and the infantry going in for selecting the target. And in this, I must also highlight one aspect, that the Hamas have developed an expertise of having tunnels which are as deep as 200 meters under the earth. Although Israelis have got seismic sensors to penetrate into the earth, detect the tunnels, but these tunnels have been connecting the colonies inside the Gaza Strip from one locality to another locality. It gives them very good escape and getaway. So therefore, this fighting is going to take a lot of time. My only fear is, Uday, if we do not regulate the stage manage the conflict as of now, it may go out of hand. It may bring in many stakeholders of Arabic nation whose support continues to be balanced 50-50, this side or that side, in favor of Israel today.
All right.
With the slightest
Let me in fact, get in some more details now also coming in. The next big question is, what happens to the 1.1 million refugees who have been asked to leave? Well, here are the official positions of the neighboring countries. Lebanon's official statement is that Hezbollah will refrain for participating in any hostilities until and unless provoked by Israel. Jordan's official statement is any attempts to forcibly displace Palestinians from all territories causing their internal displacement and spillover into neighboring nations will be opposed. Egypt's official statement is we will provide humanitarian aid through its border with the Gaza Strip, but rejects any move to step up and set up safe corridors for refugees fleeing the enclave. Greece's official statement is the latest violence will add to a surge of migrants that UN data says already led by Palestinians. So the question is, where will these people go? There is now questions arising on the refugees and where the people will go, what the refugee influx will mean, Major General Dwivedi, and what will happen to them in the next few days as this on-ground offensive gains momentum once it commences.
Well, Uday, you are very right that this humanitarian crisis actually is going to bloom, it's going to burst, because you cannot manage so many people in such a small area. But 2-3 options are available, because if we go by the statement of US, they said that a safe zone can be created in the south. Now that could be one option, so that the internally displaced refugees, Palestinians, can actually have some kind of a safe zone where they can park themselves. Second point is that those who stay behind, either by choice or being forced to stay, now there is a fait accompli, because they will be very vulnerable. And once you are in the battlefield, Bullet do not recognize who is a Hamas terrorist, who is a civilian. Well, it is just impossible, as also Sudhakar ji brought out. The third point is somewhere or the other, the global bodies will have to chip in to actually render humanitarian aid, because otherwise there'll be disease, hunger, and all the other issues that will crop up. So, but at the same time, I don't think that any Arab or non-Arab Muslim state want to have these people inside. They are lending vocal support. They'll be doing all type of demonstrations. They also would be creating problems. But when it comes to actually helping out the refugees, I find that none of them is willing. They are only giving lip service. So, in summary, if I summarize, that they will have to create a buffer zone where these displaced person can find refuge. They'll have to ensure that they are looked after at least through the minimal requirement, and a very clear line is drawn where beyond which there should be no fighting. There should be the no fighting zone. And my end issue is, or end perspective is, that this is going to last very long. It is not going to be a few days or few months. I would say it will be a couple of months. It may also go beyond that, because Hamas is not going to give up, and they are on the home ground. They are well prepared. They are well prepared to fight to finish. And Israelis are going to take casualties, and Israeli as a nation are very averse to heavy casualties. So they could be well a stalemate sort of situation that will come up, and is going to be a very bloody war, and we are going to see a lot of distress, destruction in Gaza in time to come. But at the end of it, the refugees have very little option. They have to stay put in Gaza Strip in a possibly a buffer zone which can be overseen by the UN and other agencies. I think that's the only hope, that's the only option. Uday.
Yes, there are questions now over what will happen after the invasion. Already the movement beginning, Major General Sudhakarji, for that invasion. But what happens after to the refugees, that is something we will have to be now keeping a close eye on as well, as a world body.
Well, absolutely. I tend to endorse what General Dwivedi has said. I would give a little value addition to what the General Officer has articulated. Perhaps within Israel as such is a very small nation state, as per the identity given by the United Nations. What is the size? The size is 441 kilometers by 114 kilometers wide. It's too small. And within that, we have enclaves of Gaza Strip and West Bank, and to the north, we have Golan Heights. So therefore, within Israel, because this conflict, to my mind, is going to blow up, and it is going to go beyond any expected timeline, maybe a year's time. Because any conflict which has taken place in the West Asia in the past has not actually ended in a amicable manner in 21st century, I'm saying. The Israelis themselves had to withdraw on their own unilaterally from Gaza Strip way back in 2005, 2006, if you recall, because the uprising was so strong, they couldn't actually sustain, they had to come back. And thereafter, the Hamas are having a field day. So therefore, what it brings to me is that perhaps there is some logic in looking for a safe or kind of non-conflict zone, or maybe no man's land in Jordan, or maybe in Syria, or maybe Sinai, because Egypt has flatly refused. No place for refugees to come in. So we need to look in for a suitable place where these people can be evacuated. Some orderliness can be ensured by the apex organization, United Nations Human Rights Refugee Commission, and also some kind of supply chain without any disruption can carry on. Because the area is so constricted that although you and me may be thinking that it is a safe zone, but it is in proximate to the conflict zone. Conflict zone can flare out anytime. Therefore, prudence lies in pulling them out to a safe zone, maybe today within 24 hours to south of Israel, but subsequently we need to actually stage forward their movement to a safe zone, look after from livelihood point of view, for the survival point of view, for the safety of point of view of all kinds of people getting evacuated from the area. But I would like to highlight one point with the last issue that once a conflict begins, the conflict is against an entity who's working on ideology. What is the ideology? Now, these Hamas, they are not actually neutralizing, they are not targeting Israel. Let's understand. As per them, they are looking at the entire earth. The planet has to manifest covered with Islamism. That is the objective and the ideology they are looking at. Look at the Khilafat. If you read the document, their masterpiece articulation, it says Israel is not the target. It may be a short-sighted, myopic target to eliminate or reduce complete this thing, give no place of existence to Israel. No, their aim is to spread all over. They do not fear death. They are prepared to die for a cause. And not only them, the civil population as such, they may not be overtly supporting, but by and by they have got subverted by presence of Hamas in large number. And there is a huge, I would say, a kind of understanding, tacit understanding that for so-and-so cause, for the ideology of the Hamas, they would like to sacrifice for the greater cause of their religion. So therefore, the religion and the rules-based international order, there is a conflict here. Hence, I would like to conclude my statement by saying that it's about time that the global order comes together, identifies what Hamas has done as terrorism, define what terrorism is. It is only India which had proposed the concept of terrorism and the architecture of counter-terrorism way back in 1996 in United Nations Security Council. Not a single nation has endorsed, nor have they actually given the identity or the meaning of the terrorism. Time is right. India must actually push its file and the agenda, must get everyone to accept what the meaning of terrorism. But if at all there is another country in the world which has borne the brunt of the terrorism, it is India, after Israel maybe. Back to you, Uday.
All right, let me also now, in fact, quickly apprise our viewers with some more details coming in. While Israel is preparing for a ground invasion of Gaza, it is facing a multi-front war with Lebanon and Syria. We will now take you across the places in northern Israel where air strikes and missile strikes have taken place, and then we will discuss how this could escalate. Let's quickly go across and get you those details on where, of course, these other strikes are now taking place as well. So clearly, of course, the northern Israel attacks are also, remember, continuing. So from Damascus to, of course, Fasuta, where there has, of course, been a Lebanon rocket attack. Damascus has seen IDF missile strikes. Avivim has also seen strikes from Lebanon. Meanwhile, in Golan Heights, there have been strikes from Syria. In Rashideh, meanwhile, IDF missile strike has taken place as well. So this is about the fighting that is happening even in northern Israel. Remember, and this has been eerily timed to coincide with what is transpiring across the Gaza region as well, with those rockets also being launched from that area into Israel. Let me quickly go back across to Major General Dwivedi. Major General Dwivedi, this is what is complicating the situation, isn't it? These attacks on Israel that are also coming in from the Hezbollah and also now from Syria as well.
Absolutely, Uday, because I follow this region very closely. I am a student of Middle East, did my doctorate from JNU on this very subject. The question is the northern border is also very sensitive because if you go back by a few years, in 2006, Hezbollah and the IDF had a very long skirmish, about almost 5 weeks. And Hezbollah is a force to reckon with. Its numbers are about 100,000. It has got more than 100,000, equal number of missiles and of long range. So they have the capability to hit Israel deep and also really hurt Israel. And so also Syrian, Golan Heights have been active since 1967. And a major offensive by Syria was launched in 1973 across the Purple Line. So therefore, that border also is very, very sensitive. I think Israel has to be, would be very concerned as to when the northern front opens up, and it would open up. There's no doubt about it, because once the Hamas locks horns with Israel on the Gaza, you will see that both the borders, in fact, you can say one border, Syria, Lebanon is also in one entity. It will be very active, and Israel's hand will be full on that front as well. And I'm sure their planners and their military minds are quite aware of it, but it's a matter of time when the northern border also get activated. So it'll be combined Gaza battle or Gaza war along with the northern front, and that's going to be a very, I think, difficult situation for Israel, and they'll have to handle it. Uday.
Short break. My thanks to our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.